All right, happy Halloween to everybody who celebrates it, which if you do, I feel like you should probably be 12 years old or younger, unless you're an adult and you got some kids and you're taking them out trick-or-treating. It's a different story. But anyway, I took some heat over that take. Adults still love their Halloween. I don't. But anyway, hope you are enjoying it. And on that note, welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. I am your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you, as always, for locking in, whether you're watching this on YouTube, whether you're listening to this in audio form. Appreciate you all. Today is Tuesday. Well, when this drops on the audio side, anyway, it's Tuesday. I am joined by my good friend, noted hockey creator, sports writer, podcaster, sports media personality, the most recurring guest in Talking Buffalo podcast history, my man, Joe Yerdon. What's going on, dude? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. It's we're like the full swing of things on the NHL side, so that's why it's locking me down for a little while is a good get, because, well, not just because it's me, but also because it means I've got like some time on my hands to get free. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, this is so we're taping this on Monday. Let's call this roughly dinner time, and it's important to throw that out there for a couple of reasons. Number one, the NFL trade deadline is, well, when you're listening to this later today. So as we tape, not really anything going down on the Buffalo Bills side of note on the trade market. And plus the Sabres were off today, which is,
yes, that's
rare on the hockey side. It's almost weird to me how much the team practices with as many games as they play.
Yeah. I listen, a thing that the PA won a few years back was like mandated like days off. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, because if you leave it up to a coach, they'll practice every day. You know, that's the way they want. And some players like that too. Some guys don't like having a day to kind of like chill out and rest easy. Like it's like one of those, I don't know what to do with my hands kind of things, but because everybody's a creature habit, but like sometimes it's due. And, you know, listen, schedule's funny. So getting a day where it's like, you don't have to go down to the arena, don't have to like talk to anybody, don't have to do anything. It's a nice break, although sometimes it can come at an inopportune time. This is not one of them. This is the perfect time.
Well, it's not really a day off for you. It might be a day off for the Sabres, but right. You're doing the show with me Monday around dinner time. You just recorded a couple hours ago this week's episode of Maintenance Day, the podcast that you do with Lance Lozowski from the Buffalo News. That's out. So after everybody watches or listens to this, make sure you go check out that as well. A lot more hockey talk than we'll do today because I bullshit you with so many other things when I get you on. It's been, like I said, it's been a couple of weeks, and it's nice to be able to get you on where you're not kind of squeezing in between the end of practice and maybe or a morning skate before a Monday game for sure. So listen, we're going to talk Sabres today. The offense is starting to click. I want to get your takes on that. Well, I want to talk about the Zach Benson, Matthew Savoe decision, and maybe looming there for the team. A very big week for the Buffalo Bills, of course, a measuring stick game, a true one, I believe. And the Sunday night when they traveled to Cincinnati looked really good this past week. We'll talk about that a little bit as well at the very top. So again, this is Halloween. I kind of, to use a wrestling term, I buried Halloween a little bit here at the top. Just not a Halloween guy. To me, it's always been, it always used to be anyway, a kid's holiday. And now it's, you know, adults have hijacked it and it's become an adult holiday. But whatever. Let me ask you a very important question before we get into any sports talk today. And this is important, Joe. Okay. So today is Tuesday, October 31st. Tomorrow is Wednesday, November 1st. Halloween passes today. Tomorrow is a new month. It's November. Is November 1st to you, in your world, officially Christmas season? Are we in Christmas season starting tomorrow, or does that not come to you until later on?
It's a later on thing for me.
Yeah.
I've always been on the mind that like the day after Thanksgiving is the start of Christmas time, but that I kind of got that shaken from my core when I my first career in radio. Our station and our company always kept an ear to one of the quote unquote competing stations that would do Christmas music all day long, right? Because different stations will switch formats for the season, play just Christmas music all freaking day long till Christmas and whatever. And there was a competing station that would do it Also, one of our oldies station would do that, because I guess I don't know, maybe that was the target audience, grandmas and grandpas that want to listen to Christmas. I don't know, whatever the thinking was, but they would have somebody would be paying attention to what the other station would do, and when that station flipped, when that station decided, Christmas time, our oldies station would flip within the hour. Like, they were ready for it. Like, they had a day picked out that, if everything went by their schedule, they would do it that day.
Yeah.
But if the competing station did it, they would flip like moments later. So I'll never forget, it was one of the craziest days in the office that year. And I remember it perfect because it was freaking Veterans Day. Like, Veterans Day, like, it's a holiday for a lot of people, whatever, it's fine. But like, people running around like crazy. Like, I did the morning show. So the morning show was done and I'm like at my desk and, working on stuff, and people are running around and like, okay, I'm thinking like there's a huge like news emergency or some stuff going on. I'm like, I get up, I walk around like, what's going on? They're like, oh, whatever station just switched to Christmas. So now they got to change everything over at oldies. And I was like, what? And like, everybody's being a psycho about this and just like losing their mind because they had to change like the ads. They got to change all the playlists. They got to do all this stuff. And it was friggin' Veterans Day. And I'm like, why now? Why I'm like, we're barely a weekend in November, man. Like, and like, people are freaking the hell out. And I'm like, okay. I was like, dude, it was Halloween last week. What are we doing? So yeah, it ain't Christmas time for me yet. But like, if we get snow ahead of time, that's like the natural switch for me. Is that like, we get snow that first time and it's like cold all the time, then I'm like, all right, I can relent and say like, all right, it's go time. But I don't know. I like Thanksgiving too much to just skip over it and get right into Christmas. That's
fair. That's fair. To me, Thanksgiving is a day though. It's not a season. It is a holiday and it's a great one. You get family and or friends together. You eat together, you break bread, you watch football. It's a great tradition. I guess Black Friday has become a tradition too now the next day. So still, to me, it's not a season. It's just like, it's an interruption of Christmas season to me. It's a specific day. But I will say this, and this is a non-committal answer, and I hate myself for it, but I'm halfway there because I do not think, I don't think you should put up Christmas decorations until after Thanksgiving. Like, I did that last year and I hated it. I had shit up by like November 2nd or 3rd. And that's too early. I hate it. I'm not trying to drive by people's houses and see Santa shit up on the windows and on the front lawns. It's too early for that. But Christmas music, and especially movies, there's too many of them now. There's so many Christmas movies. If you wait until after Thanksgiving before you say, I'm out watching a Christmas movie until after Thanksgiving, between all the classics and the new ones that come out every year, you're going to be able to watch them all.
Yeah.
So, and
I mean, you like way more Christmas movies than I do. I know you're nuts about them, and even though I trounced you that in our top 5 votes the one year.
I was going to say, my fondness for Christmas movies didn't stop me from receiving one of the biggest ass whoopings in the history of our draft. We did over 50 drafts, a weekly thing that went over a year. And I don't have the data in front of me, but I do remember the Christmas movie draft that we did was one of the most lopsided drafts that we ever had in
85 to 15 or something.
Yeah, you fucking killed down. It was,
and it was your fault because you watched all these newer ones made within like the last 3 years, and you're like, oh man, I'm ready, and I'm like, you're gonna psych yourself out, you're gonna lose.
I did. I overthunk it. You kept it. You kept your game plan nice and simple but effective, and you beat the living shit out of me. But anyway, so that, and also Christmas music too. But like, I'm gonna tell you right now, like, I got Sirius FM. Or Sirius Radio satellite. I will be searching for the Christmas music this week when I'm driving around.
Like, I was, what was it? I was out shopping. Now, this was 2 weeks ago. So I was looking for like some more shirts to buy or whatever, and stopped by a Kohl's, Kohl's department store. Whatever. They got, I mean, listen, I'm not a fashionista. Like, you're not going to catch me buying like, name brand clothes, like just whatever. Just give me something that fits and looks okay. walk up to the front, it's Kohl's, like whatever, walk inside, and they already had Christmas stuff everywhere. And it's like the middle of October. And I'm like, get out of my face with this. Like, what? Like, they're like, 'tis the season. I'm like, for what? For a costume? Like, get out of my face.
Yeah, you brought up a good point too. I think you need to have a little bit of snow and that type of weather for it to really
cold weather. Dude, it was like 70 a week ago. Like,
yeah, I know.
Christmas mindset with 70.
I know.
Get out of here.
It's weird because I love Christmas season so much, but I hate fucking being cold. So I'm like, they post Thanksgiving, which again, to me, that's the scene of Christmas. I'll watch movies and music now, but the scene of Christmas starts after Thanksgiving. I'll take snow and cold weather for right up until New Year's Day. Mm-hmm. January 2nd on, fuck that. I hate it. And I hate my life. One other thing. Sorry. So look, we're having a little bit of light fun here talking about Christmas. I do want to ask you a relatively serious question here. And I don't want your honest answer. Didn't tell you about this before we started taping. For people who, have been watching and listening to you on the show for a long time now, we mix in some jokes, some banter with some serious questions and topics every now and then. This is kind of one of them. And this is in light of Matthew Perry dying last week. I'm going to put up a graphic and I'll explain it on the audio side for people because most people are listening, not watching. But one of my friends, I'm not going to name them, I'm not going to call out the person, but they put up a meme about, this was not naming him specifically, Matt Perry, but you could tell this was relative to him passing away. And then another friend who I'm friends with on Facebook anyway, put up a comment, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. All right, let me start with the graphic. And again, this was after Matthew Perry died, to him specifically, but it's kind of like a general comment that I know some people feel. The meme says, it's a picture of Robert Downey Jr. I'm pretty sure he's playing Tony Stark in this meme.
Right.
Anyway, it says me after a celebrity dies and everyone acts like they lost a best friend. And it's a picture of Robert Downey having his arms folded with his eyes rolled up. Like, come on, man, really? That's like what the meme suggests physically. Now, on the comment section, a friend, and again, I want to call the person out because whatever, it doesn't serve any purpose for you and I. But he says this: how do we have emotional attachment to people who don't care if we exist, at least any more than we do for any random death of someone we don't know? Sure, there should be that twinge of respect and sadness, but the extremes people feign when some random person dies who had no tangible impact on their life has always been alarming to me. Basically, what this person is suggesting and what the meme's suggesting is that these celebrities who have passed away, these people who don't know you, who don't even know you even exist in this world, why are we writing, paying homage to them? Why are you writing basically obituaries on your Facebook or Twitter? Stuff like that. That kind of annoyed me and upset me, but I'm thinking maybe it was just me. I've always trusted your opinion to be objective and not agree with me, just to agree with me. What do you think when you see a meme like that? And again, this was in light of Matthew Perry dying, and it could be for any other celebrity too that, that passes away. What do you think when you see something like that? People who are saying whatever they say, you see the tweets, you see the Facebook statuses, like, what's your thought on that?
First off, I think anybody who posts something like that and sincerely means that they're being an asshole.
Thank you.
Honestly.
Thank you. I don't want to guide your opinion, but yes.
No, things like that, man. Like, first off, I'm a big, I'm an empathetic person. Like people are going through stuff. Like you can't sympathize unless you've been through it, but otherwise you can feel that person's, I don't know quite how to explain it. It's like, you're basically saying like you're devoid of any sort of human feeling, like
right.
Be sad about somebody passing just in general. Like, well, they're not my relatives, so why should I give a shit? Like,
they don't know you. They don't give a shit about you.
They don't know you. They wouldn't care about you. Like, come on, man. Like, give me a break with that stuff. But like, when it's a celebrity, it's like, well, if you've enjoyed their work, or if you've enjoyed their body of work, or if you like something that they were in, like, you're probably not watching that thing and going like, I bet that guy sucks at life. Like, you're not doing shit like that. Like, you're not, if you do look at things like that, man, like your life is pretty joyless, honestly, like for me, like I commented on, what was it? I commented on Blue Sky about, getting to meet Matthew Perry very briefly in 2012, doing the Stanley Cup Finals. I was in Newark, New Jersey, and running down to go to the Kings dressing room, and Perry was a big hockey fan. I think he was Canadian too. I think he was a Canadian, but he was like a big hockey guy, big hockey fan. Played in like they would always do like those celebrity hockey like get-togethers where it was like Alan Thicke and got people in LA, Michael J. Fox would play in that stuff. Just basically, if you're a Canadian and you knew how to ice skate, you're playing hockey and like doing these Hollywood things. But like Perry was part of that too. But he was like genuinely a pretty big Kings fan too. And I'm running to the Kings room, and this is in Prudential Arena in New Jersey, and going down to the room, and I kind of stand outside waiting to get let in and do interviews and things like that. And stand outside and I just see Matthew Perry just kind of casually standing there hanging out in the hallway. And I look at him, I go, "Hey, how are you?" And he just gives me that look of like that. All I can do is like describe it as like the Chandler hello, where he's just standing there and he's like, doesn't want to be talking to anybody because he just kind of wants to be left alone. So yeah, I respect that. Sure. He's just kind of standing there and he looks at me and he eyes wide, just go, "Hi, how are you?" And I'm like, I'm going to leave you alone now because you obviously don't want to be engaged by anybody at this moment, standing outside the Kings locker room in New Jersey, waiting to. I'm assuming that he got to be friends with some of the guys on that team, but it was just cool, like just to be able to see a guy, just be, "Oh, hey, appreciate your work, nice to see you," and just hi, doing like that whole. It was a total like it felt like a total like Chandler thing, but I'm certainly not going to pretend like I'm his friend, but like his body of work and his history, just doing stuff. I mean, I was not a Friends fan by any stretch, but like
I wasn't either, and everybody knows that.
If there was a character on that show where I was like, I like him, it was Chandler. Like Chandler was the guy. So maybe it was partially because I kind of felt like Matthew Perry wanted to be anywhere but on that show, but he's like, "No, I'm here, so just fuck it, who cares?" But
right.
But I mean, like, just he did a couple movie appearance, where it wasn't like a big role, but like, you're just kind of like, "Oh, hey, there he is," and then he owns the role for however long, and you're like, cool. But I don't know, it's celebrity passes, man. Like, if you've seen their work and you appreciate it, you're just like, "Oh man, it sucks," because you start digging into like. You're like, "Oh, I remember watching this when I was X age or whatever, however old." And you're like, "Oh no, I'm getting old." It's like one of those, you kind of associate your life with different pop culture things too. Yeah. So, plus if you're a basic, decent human being, somebody dying is just it's terrible. Like it's terrible news. Like if you're just kind of sitting there going, fuck them, like get a life.
Yeah, dude, you know what? I think you said it perfect, man. And in terms of the meme, I just feel like that's insensitive. And in terms of the comment, I just think that's a terrible take. I was not a Friends fan. I bashed that show. I have fought with fans of Friends numerous times. I agree with you, by the way. If I were to like one character, and I'm not just saying it because he passed, but Chandler was definitely the one that I disliked the least. Let's just put it that way. I liked him in a couple movie roles, but even if I don't, it's still, I'm paying respect to him. Right. And I think I tweeted something about, I hated Friends, whatever. I liked him in Fools Rushed In, a couple other things. But anyway, just what if 54 years old and he drowns? What a shitty way to die. And just what tragedy. He's so young. But even in the case where, maybe that celebrity didn't have any impact, like Matthew Perry had no kind of cultural impact on my life. But the point is they're talking about some people who say, well, this person doesn't even know you fucking ever even existed. They don't care about you. That doesn't mean you can't have empathy. Or if that person, especially celebrities, they tend to impact a lot of people.
Right.
Like, I'll give you an example. Like my father, I'll never forget this, man. I was a little baby still, maybe a little more than a baby, but I was very, very young. Thurman Munson died. Yeah. And I don't know, I might have been 5, 6 years old. I remember my dad bawling his eyes out when Thurman Munson died. There have been celebrities in my life who don't know I exist that had a very big impact on my life for whatever reason. Maybe not necessarily an impact, but they certainly brought me joy and brought emotions to my life through music. Like Mike, say what you will about Michael Jackson, through the years and all the accusation stuff. Right. But musically in the 80s, I grew up. Michael Jackson was God to people who like pop music in my age when you were a kid. Prince dying, that was a very big deal, man. That affected me because Prince was his music was such a big part of my life growing up. Recently, Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah.
My first celebrity, literally my first celebrity crush. I thought she was the most beautiful female on the face of this earth, man. My whole teenage years, I would think about Olivia Newton-John. I'm just saying, some of these people, they bring impact. And a lot of the sports athletes, they would grow up fans of our team, watching them, all the great moments, the great memories that they gave you, man. They pass on, whether you know them or not. You can fucking have some empathy, and what's the big deal about writing a couple paragraphs showing respect? It's some people, well, you're writing an obituary for this person. Maybe, I don't know. What's fucking 5 minutes of my life to sit there and pen a couple paragraphs to pay respect to somebody that had an impact on how I felt about things in my life. I don't know. It did not sit well with me. Like I said, this was for Matthew Perry specifically, but what they're basically saying is any celebrity who dies and we don't know them and we're taking time out of our life and treating it like a big deal. Well, in some cases, I feel like it is.
Yeah. Anybody who, like, my patience for that stuff, probably a good reason why there's, I don't look on Facebook quite as much as I used to, because you'd have friends or, family or whatever that would post things like that. And you're just like, geez, man, like, okay, like whatever. And you're just like, this, I can't be thinking that I've got friends and family that feel like this, just, about things like that in general. And like, that opens up a whole wide scope of different things around the world and life and whatnot. But like, it just, I don't know. It's the classic, like, better to say nothing than, better to say nothing than open your mouth and let everybody know what a jackass you are. It's that kind of thing.
Whether you know the person personally or not, whether it's somebody in your family, an acquaintance, a friend, whatever it may be. We've talked about this before on the show. On a more serious side, people always grieve in different ways, and there's no right or wrong way to express sorrow over something that happens. So just let people be what they're going to be. And, I always maintain this attitude that we're all different, and I don't have to agree with some of your takes and some of your philosophies to be your friend, or at least an acquaintance, whatever. But when I see some stuff now, maybe it's because I'm getting older. I start to question more like, all right, why am I friends with somebody who would feel this way towards something? It used to be, and it still is to a large extent. Well, I don't have to agree with how you feel about things for us to still be friends. But now as I get older, Joe, I'm starting to be like, do I really want this kind of energy around me in my life?
Right.
So
it's like, if you feel this way about like something that's kind of in the grand picture of things, like trivial, like, does a celebrity death affect you, like, personally? Probably not, but like, you still feel bad about it. But like, if this is how you feel about something like at that level, where are you at on like more important issues? Like, where you feel, how do you, if I mention this about like like a relative passing, like, well, they ain't my relative, so screw you. Like what? What? Like, come on.
It's I don't know. It's just sad. I don't really have a good way to segue into some actual sports talk here, so we're just gonna do it. I don't know. That was just something that weighed on my mind. And like I said, you've always been like that guy that I kind of talk about these things with on the show. Something for everybody who's watching or listening, and certainly to chew on too. I'd love to know how you feel about that when you see a meme or comments like that. So anyway, all right, let's get into the Sabres for a few minutes and we'll take a break. A very impressive victory on Sunday. You were there, obviously, covering the game over Colorado 4-0. I'll tell you this. I talked with Tone Pucks on my show yesterday. It really took the Bills. I hate when the Bills don't play on Sundays. You know how I feel. Give me 17, 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon games. I've said that a million times. But anyway, the Sabres having a game to look forward to against a good team kind of really took the sting away from the Bills not playing. And it kind of felt to me like, going into the game, I'm like, well, really good teams coming here. If nothing else, I'm going to get an entertaining Colorado whooping, Buffalo ass whooping, no matter what, to be entertained. Quite the opposite, much to my delight, quite frankly. Let's start here because, again, this is dropping on Tuesday. In terms of the game itself, kind of going to be old news. But what I'm interested in hearing from you is, what was the vibe like in the locker room after that game? Again, a shutout against one of the elite teams in hockey in Colorado. What was the vibe in the locker room like? What was the tone with Granato during his post-game presser? Stuff like that. Like it would seem to me that this was one of those uplifting kind of days for the Sabres.
Yeah, it definitely was, because even though the record might not totally show it, like they've been playing pretty well the last few games before that.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue they should have won the game in Jersey. You get a goalie injury, you get that stupid non-call on the puck over glass thing, like just that fucking penalty, man. Yeah. I if I could cast one penalty out of the rule book forever, make it that one. Just I hate it so much. And especially when it's not called, when it's very obvious. Just so stupid. But should have won that game. They should have won the Ottawa game 5-1. Let's be serious. Like that's they kind of got a little bit rattled at the end by, again, questionable penalty calls, and then the rough stuff and the nonsense and all that, all that garbage. But still won that game. UPL played well. I know it's 5-4, but people will be like, "Oh, he must have sucked at the end." I don't know. Watch the last 3 goals Ottawa scored and tell me if it was his fault. But they have been playing better of late. The fancy stat stuff agrees with that. I'm not going to get into it. Like, there's no need to like try to explain any of that stuff. But like the deeper numbers have indicated that they're playing better than the results that they're getting. And this was kind of a culmination of that, because they had one line that absolutely rolled everybody, and it was Skinner, Middlestat, and Peterka. That line crushed Colorado all game long. Every time they were out there, they were doing something impressive. They scored 2 goals, because Middlestat and Peterka each had a goal.
Fun to watch.
Yeah. They fancy stats weren't their friends with the other 3 lines, but I mean, whatever. Luukkonen played great. Was locked in all game long. There wasn't really like that, any sort of, sometimes there's a little bit of that latent nervousness that comes with his starts where you're like, oh, I hope it holds up, like one of those deals. But
first few minutes he was big, because Colorado came out pretty quick.
Ice in his veins the first like 5 to 10 minutes, because he had to be. He didn't have a choice. Colorado came out blazing, but but that was it. That was as perfect of a game as you could ask from them. That was maybe the best play game they've had all season long, and they got rewarded for it. They get Luukkonen in his first NHL shutout. That's great. I think Don was very happy with the complete effort of the team. I think he really was happy with that. He was obviously happy about Luukkonen getting rewarded there. He was hoping there wasn't going to be some kind of like dumb bounce late in the game that cost them a shutout, because that happened to Comrie. Happened to Comrie just like last week, I think it was, where you get a dumb bounce off 2 guys out. Is
that high. The Islanders game was that?
Islander game, yeah. Where it goes off Cousins, off Clifton, and then into the net. So so you get like one of those dumb things, and but I mean, listen, Luukkonen's played pretty well. That's good. The team was really happy about punching that one home and doing well with it. And for Colorado, I mean, they maybe got caught looking ahead to going home. Whatever. McKinnon was kind of lost his cool there for a bit, but worked okay, because even though he sat for 12 minutes, Colorado got 6 power plays in that game, which maybe 2 of them were deserved. Right. The PK has been awesome all season. They were so bad last year. They were great again. Keeping Colorado's power play off the board is really impressive, because that's a circus unit that can just do crazy shit all game long and score all game. But a great game, a really great game. And it's, and listen, I know a lot of the fans have been a little bit down about, the record to start and all this, and people just getting, kind of football brained about, every loss being like, oh, it's like it canceled the season, you start out, like they're 4-4 now or something.
4-5, but
4-5. So you get football brained about it, and you're like, oh, they're so far back. Oh, they got no shot. I'm like, bros, 70 games to go. Just everybody chill.
Yeah. Look, you're right. At the same token, you also don't want to start, say, 2-7.
No.
In a conference as good as the East, because, you close your eyes and bam, you're buried in a hole that you can't get out of. Fortunately, the Sabres have been able to avoid that. The offense is definitely getting going now. You can certainly see it starting to cook. They've scored 4 goals or more 3 straight games, and they've scored at least 3 in 6 of their last 7. I want to save for after the break to talk to you about Savoie and Zach Benson. We'll get to them in a couple minutes, but I saw a graphic that the Sabres PR put out today, actually on Monday. So Dahlin's got a point in 8 straight games.
Yep.
God, you know what? Yep. Quick detour, because we've been doing this podcast long enough for years before last year, before the Sabres really started, you started to see what they could be and what Dahlin could be. Because last year he became a true superstar. And he is, without question, a superstar in this league now. But I remember back to 2.5, 3, even 3.5, 4 years ago, talking to you when it came to Dahlin. And I'll never forget, man, you used to say on this podcast, maybe this guy needs maybe he needs to see a psychologist or something, because he was in his own head. And you would see it early in the season. This guy would kind of play shitty, and then he would kind of pick it up and turn it on as the season went on. Well, now completely different ball game. This guy has looked good since puck drop in game 1 for the last 2 years now. So anyway, it's just fun to see him grow. But hey, he's had points in 8 straight games. Skinner 5. He's playing really well. Tage, Power, Yoki Haru, and Tuck have points in 3 straight games. Talk about a couple of these guys. Most notably to me, Tuck, because who did they play on Monday? Montreal last week. I tweeted during the game. I said, Sabres Twitter, is it okay to say that Alex Tuck sucks right now? Because it looked like he was playing shitty early in the season. And a lot of people agreed. And then it was the very next night in Ottawa. He looked awesome. I quote tweeted myself. I said, Sabres Twitter, is it all right to say that Alex Tuck is magnificent? Because it looked like in one night he kind of turned his shit around big time. That was the Gordie Howe hat-trick night. But anyway, talk about a couple of these guys and just the offense. It just seems like they're starting to get it. It's starting to click for them.
Yeah. Tuck especially, that Montreal game, it was maybe his worst game of the year. He was just all over the place. There's turnovers, just not himself.
Right.
And he was dealing with some kind of injury during camp that it probably came into the beginning of the year. So there was something affecting him. Like, there was some practice days where it was just like he wasn't practicing, and it's like that's not really his style. So it's like, he's dealing with something, but like it's the beginning of the year. You don't want to go into the year, nursing something or trying to fight through something. Like, it just sucks. And to me, it pointed out that like he's probably fine now. Like whatever was bugging him is gone. And but that Montreal game, I think, might have been the wake up call for him to be like, I gotta get my shit right here. Let's get it going here. And the Ottawa game, instant turn on. Like that was, he was like right back to his old self, being a power forward, being in the right place all over the ice, playing hard, drove Ottawa crazy. I mean, he obviously made Brady Tkachuk mad late in that game to get a fight out of him, and kind of a shitty hit too. Let's be real, but like you need Alex playing physical that way. You need him playing like a power forward, and he's done that each game since, because he's been spot on. He's been exactly what you need him to be. So that's whatever it was. Maybe he needed a really bad game like that to kind of wake him up or what, but I remember we spoke with Don after the Montreal game. That was a game that they should have won. That's a should have won game, because
they let him hang around,
played out of his mind. So whatever. But I think it was even Lance who asked about Alex after that game. Like, he's like, well, we'll be talking with him. We'll get things figured out. But listen, he's been on point ever since that game, which is great to see. The Dahlin thing, it's funny that you're like, wow, for the last 2 years, he's been great off the bat. And I'm like, yeah, you got a Ralphectomy. That's what happened. You got rid of Ralph, and suddenly he's great. The same thing goes for Skinner, and all these guys that we talked about last year. Is like, wow, what's different? I'm like, well, I know what's fucking different.
Oh, Ralphectomy.
But it's weird though, because like Tage is on a streak, and everybody was like, "Why isn't Tage scoring?" And then he scores a few goals. They're like, "Oh, everything's normal again." And I'm like, "Well, he was fine. Just the puck sometimes doesn't go in." But which it happens. It's hockey.
Happy birthday to Tage, by the way. We're taping this on his birthday. 26 years old, man. It feels like maybe because he was part of the Ryan O'Reilly trade, that he was the young prospect. It feels like that trade was a century ago. So you would think Tage is so much older. But he just turned 26 here on Monday, October 30th, man. He's still a young kid. Well, not young compared to a lot of his teammates, but he's still pretty goddamn young.
July 2018 was that trade. Which is crazy.
over 5 years ago.
Great. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it was 5 years ago because, and I only remember it because who won the Stanley Cup in 2019? Oh, St. Louis did. Who was the Conn Smythe? That was Ryan O'Reilly. That's right. Yeah. 2019. Okay. But like, yeah, it's been here 5 years, and he's been a superstar now for like 3 years now. Well, this is like his third year being a superstar, because that breakout season was like, whoa, wait a minute, what's this? And then you went over top of it last year, and you're like, oh no, he's for real. Okay, perfect. But he's I'm putting something together on Tage now where it's not just the offense for him. I don't know if you've noticed, but he and Jordan Greenway are like a penalty killing tandem now.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying if you're carrying the puck at the top of the zone and you've got two guys that are 6'5", 6'6", just like get right on top of you, trying to, you're trying to pass the puck, and you've got, like 12 feet of arms coming out at you, like from everywhere. And you're just like, okay, all right, that's enough. I don't want this anymore. Get away from me. But yeah, so putting together some of the defensive numbers and whatnot for him. And let me tell you, if this guy's playing defense as well as he's playing offense, Jesus, good luck, everybody. Because, oh my God, you're talking a 40-goal guy that can prevent goals at an equal kind of rate. Like, that's bonkers shit.
All right, I am back here with Joe Yerdon. By the way, for everyone watching or listening, go to my Twitter. I have a prize pack giveaway going on right now. You could win 20 wings and a large pizza from Imperial Pizza, Macy's Place Pizzeria, and Sunny Reds. All three. That's got to be at least $150 value. All you got to do is go on my Twitter. It's real simple. You got to retweet the tweet that's pinned on my at the top of my Twitter page, and then you got to reply with a screenshot that you're subscribed to this either on Apple or Spotify to be eligible to win. But like I said, 3 elite places you can get pizza and wings from. Back here with Joe Yerdon. All right, so we were talking Sabres before the break. Before we get to a couple of minutes of some Bills talk here, a question that I'm very interested in and seeing how things play out, and I know a lot of Sabre fans are right now, is what happens with Zach Benson. As of right now, he's played 6 games. He can get up to 9 before the Sabres burn a year of his ELA, his entry-level contract. Or ELC, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Right now, as things stand, and Matthew Savoe also is definitely worth noting. He's in Rochester on a conditioning assignment, but that will end at the end of this week, if I believe. And then the Sabres will have to make a decision because, as we all know, he can't not play for Rochester other than the conditioning assignment, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one or both of them, are they going to both be on? What happens with these two guys as you see things playing out right now? Now, Eric Comrie, this is important, potentially, goes on IR, which could open up a roster spot while Comrie's on IR. So hypothetically, the Sabres could hold on to both these guys when that decision comes, which again, this decision's coming soon because Benson's only got 3 more games before they got to decide. And Savoy's in Rochester for this week. Then they got to decide on him too. How do you see things as of right now, at least, playing out? And by the way, before you answer, I'm sure you talked about this and a lot of other things on the Maintenance Day podcast with Lance. So like I said at the beginning, make sure you go hear that after you watch this. But what's your thoughts on that as of right now?
So Lance and I did discuss this a little bit. So spoiler, if you've listened to that already, thank you. We appreciate you. Appreciate you listening and subscribing, all that stuff. We thank you. So you'll get a little bit of a repeat touch here. So just, but don't go anywhere. Just keep listening. I think Benson's going back. I think he's going back, but it won't be for another week because I think they want Savoy to play the rest of the games that he can play in Rochester because he can play. I think there's 3 more because they play Wednesday. So like Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. I think they play. I think that's what the Rochester schedule is right now. But he scored. He scored his first goal the other day. Got a very nice assist recently, so I think he's up to 3 points already. 3 points, 3 games, maybe.
Yeah, I saw a couple of clips. He's looks fast too.
Yeah, he's extremely fast, and they've had him playing with Yuri Kulik and Isak Rosen, which is just fun. Just to be very plain about it, that's super fun that they have those guys together. Yeah, Savoy's got a goal and 2 assists in 3 games. Got a power play assist in his first game, then scored the next game, and then had a nice pass to Kulik on a 2-on-1 breakaway kind of thing the other day. So I think they're going to let him play out the rest of the 3 games till he has to, before they have to make a decision on him to send him back, which I think kind of times out perfectly with Benson, because he can play 3 more games. Like, he could play, if he plays Wednesday in Philly, Friday at home against Philly, then Saturday in Toronto. That's 3 more games. That's 9. Times out pretty perfect with Savoy's schedule. Then you can just bring. Now, mind you, you can keep Benson around. Like, you don't have to send it. Like, if he's at 9, you can keep around. But if you scratch him, you're playing somebody else. They could bring Savoy back. And they might. I think there's a good possibility. Like, if you send Benson back, you bring in Savoy. But with Comrie on IR, and depending on Devin Levi's health, because that will depend on if they got to bring Devin Cooley back in to be the backup. We're playing, all kinds of musical chairs here. But what could happen, though, is if Levi's good to go, okay, Cooley stays in Rochester, great. That opens up a spot to call somebody up. Mm-hmm. So, okay, you can call up anybody. Probably get a look at Cooley, because why not? He's scoring like crazy. He's got 9 points in 7 games or whatever it is right now. 6 goals. Like, he kind of earned a look. If you score 6 goals in your first 7 games, it's worth a peek, especially with whatever's going on with Olofsson. Like, Olofsson was originally, I think he was originally supposed to be in the game on Sunday against Colorado, but they changed to Tyson Jost instead, because Olofsson skated on that line in practice the day before.
I remember that. I remember seeing you tweet out the lines. I was surprised on Sunday. Let me ask you a question about Olofsson before we pivot back to Benson. And maybe this is related. If the Sabres, if he's just going to keep getting scratched at some point, and this is a legit question because I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
If the Sabres wanted to waive him, like, could they waive? And I know they don't want to waive him. I know that they want to get something for him. I understand that. The guy did score 20-some goals a year ago. I get that.
28.
But let's just say if they get to a point where they're saying he's almost unplayable right now, and they want to play Kulik, and they want to play Savoy or Benson, whoever combination it might be. Can they waive Olofsson? And then if no one claims him, then he could get sent to Rochester, but he'd have to go through waivers first. Hypothetically, is that what they could do?
If they waive them and nobody claimed them, they could send them to Rochester then.
Okay. But do you see that as a possibility? Him being waived?
I think that if that happened, I think that's them admitting, like, we're kind of done with him.
Sure. Yeah.
Because like, what are you doing at that point? Like, if you're scratching them already, you're like, well,
I feel like they're at that point
a couple of times. So it's like, all right, well, maybe listen, you probably want a more defensive lineup against Colorado. Let's be real. They're far too dangerous to maybe have somebody who might not be as helpful defensively. Jost is very helpful defensively. And then he scored a goal on top of it. So you're like, all right, well, what is, you're looking at Victor at that point going like, what do you do around here again? Like, I'm not sure, but then you're paying him $4+ million to play in Rochester, and that nobody wants to be doing that. No team wants to have a guy making that much money playing in your AHL team. Like, it's just, that's the way it goes. But if I've been saying, like, if they trade him, they have to eat 50% of the contract no matter what. Like, they just have to, and they can, like, they can afford it. That's fine. But if that's what it takes to make a deal, then I don't know. It sucks to have to pay a guy to go play for somebody else. But, at that point, I'm like, trade him to somebody in the Western Conference. So you see him once, twice, maybe never again. But it's
confidence has to be shot, though, Joe. I mean, what confidence could this young man have right now at this point, being scratched as much as he has? I just feel like this team, essentially, it feels to me, just as an outside person, I'm not covering a team like you are. You would know way better than I ever would, but it just feels to me like this team's almost at a point where, unless they absolutely need him, they're already done with him. Maybe I'm wrong.
You're not wrong. I think that's part of the thing, is that you're not wrong about that. He doesn't have any of the raw numbers. Like, he doesn't, he's got like a point, maybe he's gotten maybe did he get a goal yet? I don't or is he had? I'm trying to look really quickly.
I don't think he's scored this year.
No, he has no points. So, when he does play, he's playing 12 minutes a game, and his fancy stats are. I mean, right now you're talking about like 6 games worth of stuff, like whatever, are the worst that he's put up in his career. So it's all signs are pointing to like it's time, like he's got to go. But the time to move him was over the summer for me, like that.
Sure.
Quinn, Jack Quinn had taken over. Like, okay, well, that was Victor's spot. It's Quinn's spot now for the rest of his career probably. And then you're like, all right, well, if Olofsson's not playing somewhere in your top 6, do you really want him on your third line? Well, you can play him on your third line as long as your third line's got some skill to it too.
Right.
But he's got to be more defensively responsible in that spot, which he wasn't last year. He was not very reliable there. So you're thinking, you're like, well, there's other guys that we can play in that spot over top of him. At that point, you're like, well, he's not in our lineup then. So, but Quinn blows out his Achilles and you're like, well, maybe Victor will take this chance and run with it. And hasn't happened. No. It hasn't happened. And then Benson comes in and plays crazy good in preseason. And then, okay, the spot you had for Olofsson is now taken up by an 18-year-old. And then you're like, well, if it wasn't that 18-year-old, it would have been 19-year-old Savoe taking the spot. You're like, what are we doing here? Like what are we doing with Victor? So, it stinks because Victor's a great guy. I love Victor like crazy. He's such a good guy, but man, it ain't happening right now. And we were saying this for 3 months last year. Like it just ain't happening. It's not working. It's probably time to say goodbye. But you're talking what? 10 teams have at least, I think, 2 million or 1 million in cap space. And the Sabres are one of those 10 teams. So you're looking at teams where you could like maybe try to squeeze them off somewhere else, but there's nowhere else he can go because if you eat half of it, it's $2 million against the cap that some other teams gonna have to pay for him. So it's tough.
That's why I asked about the waive question, because he just if he's untradeable, right now at this point. So
and that's the waiving thing is tough too, because all right, you waive him, you send him to Rochester. Do you want him taking minutes away from your young guys down there? No. Like that's another part of it. Like, sure, you could maybe find you can send him to like have him play for another AHL team, reassign him to like somebody else's team. Like, I don't know. Chicago has no affiliate right now. I'm pretty sure, the Chicago Wolves in the AHL. I have to be careful. Chicago Blackhawks do have an AHL affiliate. Chicago Wolves are an unaffiliated AHL team. I'm pretty sure you could loan Victor Olofsson there pretty easily. As long as you're paying the bills for him, they'd be okay with that. They'd happily take him on board. But on the other hand, what else can you do? You're kind of stuck at this point. So it's hard because, again, Kulik's playing great. Rosene's playing great. Savoie is probably looking at getting more of a look in the NHL soon. If you ask me, like if you send him Benson back, you're bringing Savoie in to take that spot.
Yeah.
Which gives him 9 games to figure out if he's staying or not. So like you're kind of kicking the can down the road until Jack Quinn's ready to practice and ready to play, which, hey, there's worse things. There's worse problems to do, but
I thought of that. I watched the game with my son, which, by the way, Joe, is a lot of fun. I'm talking about Sunday's game. Yep. It is a lot of fun to watch hockey with him because he's 20 years old, going on 21, and he is just now starting to embrace the sport and really start to understand it a little bit and really follow the team. Not just, hey, I got a Sabres jersey on because I'm living in Florida. I'm from Buffalo, so go Sabres. Like he's actually watching the freaking games and paying attention to them, asking questions. Anyway, we talked about that on Sunday, like these young kids that are flying around, and just wait till Jack Quinn gets back too.
Yeah.
It's going to be even more exciting. Back to the Benson stuff. And the thing with me with Olofsson is maybe they kept him around or didn't trade him or give him away for nothing because maybe they weren't quite sure. I don't think they expected what they got from Benson in camp. Savoie, you don't know. So I get maybe why you would still not just want to give Olofsson away for nothing anyway at the time, because Quinn's going to be gone until when he comes back. But now, all right, so let's say, Comrie's on IR. Okay. And so that gives them, as of right now, as we're taping this, they haven't filled that spot. Like they have a spot for right now. And let's say it would require Devin Levi being healthy too later this week so that they don't have to bring up the goalie. But let's say Levi can come back this week. That still gives them that one extra roster spot. Is it conceivable that when Savoie, those 3 games are up in Rochester, that he and both him and Benson are both here in the lineup for the Sabres? Could you see that as a possibility? Or are you pretty confident that it would be like Kulik coming up and Benson going out? Or somebody else, maybe B-Row or somebody, I don't know.
Yeah. Byro's healthy. He was out day to day for a little bit. I was in Rochester last week and he didn't play in that game. It was just a little bit of a nick up, and like, man, if he stays healthy, he's just such a good player. Yeah. But like staying healthy has been an issue. But could be, maybe it is, maybe he's the guy that you call up and you're like, all right, man, you've earned it. You're healthy. Get up there now while you can. Know, like we're not gonna, you deserve this call up last year. It just didn't work out. Let's get you up there now. But
do you see Savoie and Benson potentially both of them being with the Sabres at the same time? And hypothetically, it could happen. Hypothetically, I'm not saying it should or it will. I'm just saying it could if you have that extra roster spot and they decide to call them up, both of them.
Yeah, I find that one a little tougher to have them both in the lineup at the same time, because again, remember, Savoie doesn't have any NHL games experience. Like he's got 5 games of AHL experience right now, 2 in the playoffs last year where, that was trial by fire. And now 3 games so far this year. Now, by the time that he's ready to come up, he'll have 6, ideally, again, knock on wood, injury, whatever. But,
well, not necessarily in the lineup though, but both on the roster, like maybe one plays and one doesn't. And then you'd have 2 forward scratches instead of 1.
You could, but you're talking about taking away possible options for your lineup if they, if there's an injury or whatever, like, cause they've already had, like, it's already been like you have 1 extra forward, 1 extra defenseman because you've been carrying 3 goalies. So now you're at a spot where it's like, okay, well, one of the 3 goalies is out, probably going to be out for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Now we can have two forwards and a defenseman, or 2 defensemen and a forward, as your reserves. Like that's a lot more malleable. And plus, your top 4 guys, all your guys in your defensive lineup, maybe some of those guys need a break here and there and can swap guys out. I mean, Clifton is suspended, so like, that gets Bryce in the lineup, and then you're like, oh no, we don't have a backup on defense right now. So, if a guy goes down, like say if somebody gets hurt in practice or something before they play Wednesday, then you're like, okay, well, now we have to call up a defenseman, so like that, just so you got an extra guy in the road, which still might happen. Like that can still happen.
Sure.
Because you don't like to go on a road trip, even a road trip of 1 game. You don't like to go up there without a backup plan, and you're not going to play down 5 defensemen and play 13 forwards like that. Nobody does that shit in the NHL. You're just not doing it. But I mean, technically, yes, you could have Benson and Savoie on the roster at the same time, but you're kind of limiting your options, especially if Benson's at like that threshold. Like Savoie wouldn't be, but Benson would be pretty close to it, if not right at it.
So I got 3 more games. He's got 3 more games. Yeah.
Right. And like, if you're already thinking like you're going to send him back, but you're like, oh, well, you could play him, but we're not sure. But if you're already thinking we're going to send him back, just send him back. Like take him up to that point, like, because it's working for your roster right now. Like it's fine. And he's not playing badly. Like the penalties recently have been a little bit.
Yeah, 2 Sunday.
Can't be doing that stuff. No. And I felt bad. And like people have been adding Lance and I on Twitter because we talked about this before the season even began. Like after watching him in preseason, I'm like, dude's got to watch the stick. If he doesn't watch his stick, he's going to be sitting in the box quite a bit. And then sure enough, he's exactly what happens. And you're like, no, like
he's like a handsy defensive back in football, getting called with those, legal hands in the face, stuff like that. Like the
equivalent. If you've been in the league 8 years, you could probably get away with a lot of that stuff. You've been in the league for 6 games.
One of those veterans in the locker room. Yeah, they're coming up.
No shot, especially when it's like veteran dudes on the other side. Like you're just not getting away with that. I think what the hell was it? I think the one slashing call, like he slashed Nathan McKinnon's stick out of his hand. Dude, Like, yeah, McKinnon should hang onto his stick. I'm like, yeah, but also he got slashed on his stick. You drop that shit every time.
Yeah,
you might get a call. And after McKinnon already shot his mouth off at the ref, like, of course the ref is going to make that call then. Like, he's going to be like, well, this guy's already called me a shithead once. I don't need to hear it again.
let me ask you one more Benson and Sabres question before we end with a couple minutes here of football talk. Is it hypothetically, again, I keep using that word hypothetical. Right. It seems to be the theme of this podcast during the Sabres segment anyway. And I saw this, a fan tweeted this at me. So if it's a good question, I ask you it. If it's a shitty question, some stupid fan put it in my mentions, and I just thought I would pass it along to you, but it's not me asking you. All right, so let's say Zach Benson's 9 games are up, and the Sabres decide, or they got to make their decision at that point. The fan who tweeted at me suggested that he's so much better than the competition that he'll get sent down to, because he would go into juniors, right?
If he does juniors, he can't go to the AHL.
Right. So he can't go to the AHL. He has to go down to juniors. He might be so much better than that competition that it might not help his development. And he might even potentially develop maybe some bad habits from playing in an inferior league, as opposed to saying, yes, it would definitely require the Sabres burning that first year of his contract. But even if he's a healthy scratch, and even if he only plays 30, 35 games for the Sabres, and the rest he's in the press box or whatever, that might be more beneficial to him now in going forward than going to spend a year in juniors where he's just going to dominate and not really improve his game playing against that competition. Does that make sense? Where hypothetically, again, I say that word, where the Sabres might keep Benson beyond the 9 games, burn that first year, and just he might be that extra that only plays 30, 35 games, almost like a backup goalie gets, 35 to 40 games. What do you think about that possibility? Unless it's a bad question, then I didn't ask you it.
No, I don't think it's a bad question. I think it's just I think it's like a probing one, just where you just kind of want to get the idea of what's right, what isn't. And I understand that. For me, Benson's got to play for Canada and World Juniors. And if he doesn't, then something's wrong. I mean, the guy, he put up he was 3rd in the Western Hockey League in scoring last year at 17, 18 years old. Like, he's going to play for Canada at the World Junior Championships this year. And if he doesn't, Canada's management is insane. Savoie didn't play for him last year, but that has a lot more to do with different kinds of political BS where he played a year in the USHL, and they're just like, oh, why didn't you play in the CHL when you were 16? Blah, 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 blah. And shut up. Just, he's Canadian, right? You want a good Canadian player, don't you? But why not that guy? Well, stupid shit like that. Benson didn't take that road. Benson's on Canada's radar right away. He'll play. If he doesn't play for Canada at the World Juniors, your team better be super, super gods. Because again, I point out, Connor Bedard was number 1 in scoring. Some 20-year-old undrafted prospect was 2nd. Benson was 3rd. You're talking 2 of the youngest guys, and the next super god of hockey were the top 3 scorers in the Western Hockey League last year. Yeah. Benson's got to play there. So and I get being worried that he'll regress. The way I look at it is that Benson's learning a lot of the NHL necessary habits now, both on and off the ice.
Okay. Yeah.
And those are the things that he would take with him there. So he would make his teammates better by proxy by being able to do that.
Do you mean, Joe, do you mean stuff even off the ice stuff too, like rest and nutrition and things like that, being at the NHL, travel, all this little things that maybe fans don't think about?
Yeah. Things like that, but also the timing and what he can and can't get away with at the next level. There's different, there was, what the hell game was it? It was the game against Calgary where the first 2 minutes, I think it was the second period. I think it was the second period or second or third. I forget. But the Sabres had control of the puck for the first 2 minutes of the period, and globetrotted them, the whole thing. And Benson got the puck and was like, we can keep this going. And instead of putting the puck down, send it down the corner, let his teammates go after it, because he'd already been out there for 90 seconds, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. He took the puck to the middle of the ice thinking I can take it here and create from here. And he got trucked by Dennis Gilbert. And then that turned into a 4-on-2 the other way for Calgary, and they scored on it. That was a junior hockey play. Now, I'm not going to kill Benson for it because, like, yeah, I get the mentality. He's 18, like, whatever. Like, wants to make something good happen. I get it. Totally understand it. But that's not a play you make in the NHL. Like, that's a junior hockey play. And I'm like, live and learn, because he lived and he learned that he can't make that play. He knows he's got to get the puck in the corner and let everything keep going. Even though he knows we've got this team on the ropes, we can get a goal here soon. We keep doing this. And he thinks, I can make this happen. Against other 16, 17, 18-year-olds, yes, you can make that happen. Against guys who have been around for a long time, no, chances are pretty minimal you're going to be able to make that happen. So he learned that there. That's not a play he'll make at the net. Like, that's not a play that he'll defer to first if he goes back to juniors. Like,
I got you.
He'll be thinking like, no, there's a smarter play that we can do here, where, again, he could get away with it there, but like, that's not the smart play. Like, it's things like that he's learning now that he'll take with him that will make him an even better player in juniors. If when he goes back there, that kind of stuff I don't worry about. Like, now I know the whole situation when Wenatchee's been kind of messed up. Like, Kevin Constantine was there, then he got let go because he was being a jackass about something. I don't. All we know is that he was being bad person, bad things. Get out of it. Their coach now is Roy Sommer, who was coaching in the AHL for a couple of years, for a long time. A long time respected coach. He's there now. That calms that whole thing down so that you feel a little bit better. The only problem with Wenatchee is that they're really thin. Like, that's a really thin team. And, without Savoie, without Benson, like, I think they've got Connor Geekie is there. He's really good. They don't have a whole lot else. So there's a good chance he ends up playing for somebody else at some point. Like, Wenatchee will just trade him for 9 first-round picks. And that junior hockey trades are like that. They're like, trade this really good guy for the next 5 first-round picks from some team that'll be good for 5 years, whatever. So yeah, I don't worry about him going somewhere else and just picking up all the bad habits again and then bringing him back with him when he's trying to make the team next year. That's not going to happen. He's learned a lot of what it takes to be a pro, to be an NHL player that he'll take with him wherever he goes.
Yeah, that sounds sensible on the ice. And like I said, off the ice, I'm sure as well, just part of being a grown-up, how you conduct yourself, all those factors that a professional athlete, that they learn. He's had the advantage of being with the team for as long as he has. So, actually that does make good sense. It's going to be an interesting week for the Sabres, home and home against Philly, Toronto on Saturday. And then, like I said, decision time when it comes to Benson and Savoie. By this time next week, we should have a pretty clear indication of how that's going to go down. Before I let you go, big week for the Bills here, football. They're playing the Cincinnati Bengals. No other way to put it to me. It is measuring stick time for the Buffalo Bills. They are playing a team that is, first of all, they're a really good football team. Secondly, after a really shitty start, in part because of a quarterback who was very unhealthy, he's healthy now. They beat up on San Francisco pretty good. I watched that entire game on Sunday. I can make a case for you right now that Cincinnati might be the most complete team in the NFL. We've both been pretty high on Cincinnati for a while. I'll go back to 2 off seasons ago. We literally did an episode about the Bengals being so underrated and under the radar. Nobody was talking about them. This was after they got to the AFC Championship. This was after they went to the Super Bowl that offseason. Nobody talked about them. And then they almost went back again last year. Anyway, this is a good team. This is a battle-tested team. And the Bills, we don't know how we're supposed to feel about this football team right now. They've had some really high points of the season, beating Miami. They've had some really shitty parts. Losing to the Patriots is just absolutely humiliating. The metrics, you talked about this on the hockey side earlier. The fancy stats say that the Bills are one of the best teams in the NFL offensively. The points scored suggest that they're one of the best teams right now in the NFL offensively, but we've seen them struggle a lot too. So they're playing a team right now. Again, the Bills have beaten up on some pretty shitty teams, just like the Miami Dolphins have beaten up on a lot of shitty teams this year. Well, this ain't a shitty team. They beat the Bills last year in the playoffs 27-10. It felt like it was 47-10. May as well have been because it was so one-sided. Of course, they're also going back to the place what happened last year in primetime with DeMar, which, by the way, nobody likes to talk about this, but Cincinnati was well on their way, it appeared, to beating the shit out of the Bills in that game as well. Just, I don't know, as a Bills fan, I need to see this game because I need to know where the Bills are at, but it is not a matchup much to my liking. One last point too, Joe. My guy, Tone Pucks, Bills fan, not a homer. He literally for 2 weeks running now is talking about taking every single penny that he can muster up and own and bet on the Bengals this week.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
What are you thinking, man? As a Bills watcher.
The thing that's got me about the Bills the last few weeks is that it's maddening to try to keep up with the takes and everything on social media because you'll lose your goddamn mind.
Yeah.
Everything just makes me feel like I'm a crazy person. I have zero ties to this team. And I'm like, half the people. Well, yeah, right. I'm just paying attention to the team because it would be impossible not to living here. But you have half the fan base and half the bloggers, writers, whatever, saying like, no, everything's good, everything's fine, it's great. And then people who are kind of pointing out like, well, this part isn't so good. They'll be like, shut up, nerd. It ain't like that. Like just stuff like that where I'm like, I don't know. You can't have like, it doesn't seem like you can have like an objectively, I know you want to call it negative, just having an objective take on like how they're performing without having people being like, oh, well, you don't believe in them. Oh, why do you hate them? Why do you hate this play? Like,
it's tough. It's tough on either side of the fence. It's hard. It's hard to be objective, but yeah,
right.
I get what
you know, keeping up with the Tampa game on Twitter was fascinating because you had half the people saying like trying to throw flowers at every coordinator, player, being like, oh, they play great. Oh, it's great. Oh, it's this. And then, like I get it. Like they parked the bus in the fourth quarter. They were just like, we're not going to do anything else. We're going to win. It's fine. Like whatever. And which was fine, but
they punted twice on 4th and 2 in Tampa territory because they were up 2 touchdowns.
One time it's, with 5 minutes to go, like, no, pin them deep, make them have to work 90 yards to get downfield, whatever. But like, I'm still looking at a team that has, and again, Bills fans being like, "Oh, we never get the calls," and then two games against really, really bad teams where they got the calls, especially at the very end of the game.
Yeah, that should have been pass interference.
Probably shouldn't have gotten calls.
It's crazy. It blows my mind.
That's like
lost that game.
Right, the Bills game, the Giants game too.
Should have won.
Both those games could have been L's too. So I don't know. They're a maddeningly confusing team, and it brings me back to like Allen's first couple of years, where it's like, oh, some games you're like, oh man, they could beat beat everybody, and then they're losing to New England, or they're playing like dog crap against the Giants, or it's one of these things, and you're like, I don't know, man. Then people will be like, well, they put up all these points against the Raiders and Washington. I'm like, yeah, well, so did the Bears.
That's why I want them to play.
Come on.
That's why I want them to play the Bengals. I want to see. I think this definitively tells you where the Bills are at. If it's a competitive game, win or lose, I'm like, all right, this team can play with anybody, win or lose. If they blow the Bengals out, you're going to be really high on them. And you know what? You should be. If you blow out the Bengals on the road, you should be high on the Bills. If you get your asses taken to the yard, then you're like, now throw those fancy stats in the freaking garbage.
Yeah.
Because you're not as good as the Bengals. It's time to start finding out what this team is.
I think that's the part that bothers me the most about them is I don't know what the hell kind of team this is. I watched that Miami game up close, and like Miami's a pretty good team, and they smoked the shit out of them. Like, okay, did they hulk up for a game? Was Miami too high in their own supply after putting 70 up on the Broncos? I don't know. I have no friggin' idea, but like, that's like the one game where I'm like, well, that's what they can do. That's what they're capable of doing. That's something that they can do. But like the Washington and the Raider games, those don't impress me. Like that, like, cool. You beat the snot out of a couple of dog shit teams. Great. Way to go. But like, games against New England should have beat the garbage out of them. Didn't. Should have beat the Giants by 50. Won barely, should have smoked Tampa Bay. I watched Tampa Bay against Detroit. Tampa Bay was at home and they didn't do anything. They lost 23-6 or something like that. They did nothing.
Yeah.
And, and listen, don't give me the, well, Detroit's really good. Don't give me that crap, because the Bills are supposed to be better than everybody else in the league except for like 3 teams tops. But you got them at home, beat them by 40, beat them by 50, beat these dog crap teams and show a lesson. And don't think you're kings of the world after doing it either. Like, it's like that stupid, like, Bill's magnet thing, like, be hungry, be humble. And like, they've never been either of those things. They've never been truly hungry. They're never humble if they beat the shit out of somebody. They're just always yap. Just go do your thing. Beat somebody by 30 and be like, all right, who's next? Like, just be that way.
It's an opportunity on Sunday. I wrap it up here. I feel like the Bills are a tale of two teams. It's the offense and the defense. On the offensive side of the ball, I truly, and this is objective, no homer takes here from me, I truly think the Bills offense is good enough to win a championship. I do. They got an elite quarterback, they got an elite receiver, a good enough offensive line, an emerging rookie tight end, and they've shown over the last couple of weeks they got some secondary weapons in Cook and Shakir, guys who are capable of making plays. Gabe Davis had 9 catches last week after having 1 the week before. I get the inconsistency. It's maddening. But here's my point. Offensively, it's there. It's about execution, just like with hockey. You got to execute at the end of the day, get all the great matchups and skill players, but you got to execute. On the offensive side of the ball, it's there. Is the coaching going to be good? Are they going to be able to execute? What's their philosophy going to be? Because to me, the Johnnies and the Joes are there on the offense. Defense is the other. That's a different story. The defense, to me, I think Sean McDermott, despite how much fans hate him for so many reasons, I think he is a good defensive coach. He always has been. Yep. I think he matches up well. I like his defensive philosophies, but my issue with the defense is the Johnnies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's, because they lost Trey. They lost Milano. They lost Daquan Jones. Ed Oliver's playing at less than 100%. So is Greg Rizzo. Von Miller, we all know he ain't no 101%, although he did show some promising signs, I will say, Thursday night against Tampa. But anyway, my point is this, Joe. I just don't feel like they have the horses right now on defense to win a championship. So it's not about execution. I think it's a talent discrepancy between the offense and the defense. And I feel like that's what's ultimately going to doom them. And again, I keep going back to the same thing. I think we're going to start to get some real answers now, starting on Sunday night against a real football team.
Yeah, Bills are, they've got some confidence going into this game. You win a game, you get confidence. That's how it works in the NFL. It's good that they've got that. But like Cincinnati, whatever was wrong with Burrow the first 4 weeks of the season, it ain't there now.
He was running Sunday against
went back and looked at that schedule and was like, boy, they lost some teams they shouldn't have been losing. Like, you lose to Baltimore. Baltimore seems pretty good now. Like, Lamar seems to be feeling himself. So like that's a little scary on their part. But like, I don't, you lose some of these dumb games. They barely beat the Rams, and you're like, that wasn't the real team. Now this is the team. They made Purdy look stupid. They made Purdy look awful in that game. Yeah, he's good. He's very good with that team. But I don't know. It's a fascinating matchup because you're going to find out a lot about, I think, both teams in this one. Because if Cincinnati ain't for real, it's going to be close, or Buffalo can put 30, 35 on them. But if the Bills ain't for real and the Bengals are for real, it could be a long night. That could be a real long night, because that defense, I mean, it's not an excuse if it's real. And having without White, without Milano, without DeQuan, without those guys, man, you're asking a lot. You're asking a lot of those guys, and it's got a potential mess written all over it.
Let me point one more thing out to you. And by the way, as we're taping this, the Bills are signing Leonard Fournette to the practice squad. I got no issue with that. His ceiling to me is better than Latavius Murray. I'm good with it as long as he's not chewing away snaps from James Cook as the season winds down. That's all I care about. But anyway, this potentially, as we're taping this, the Bills have not made a trade. Okay. And I don't want to speak on what happens because people will listen to this overnight or into the morning, and the Bills might make a trade later Tuesday. But if Brandon Beane does not make a trade, and if Cincinnati soundly beats the Bills, like my guy Tone Plucks is willing to bet his life on is going to happen, Twitter might be an historically all-time epically ugly place to be for Bills Twitter come next Monday morning if the Bengals put it on the Bills and Brandon Beane did not go out and try to add, whether it's to the offense or the defense. That shit is going to get oogly.
Yeah.
I promise you that, man.
Yeah, he can't go out and add like a third string lineman to deepen up the line, either on either side of the ball, like offense or defensive line. You can't just go out and get some dude that for a 7th round pick and call it a day.
Yeah,
you got to do. It's hard. Like, I get it. It's hard to make trades, but there's a bunch of real big loser teams out there with players that you could probably pull for like a 2nd round pick or a 3rd round pick. We already saw Seattle do it with Harrison from the Giants. So you can make a move. It's just whether you want to give up the draft capital to do it, because the player giving up a player ain't going to do it. But
yeah, I don't want to go on a trade tangent, because by the time some people at least listen to this will know what they have done. I'll save that for the afterwards. I want to end with one thing. Got about 3 to 5 minutes here. I'm going to throw up a graphic again from 80s and 90s. Okay. On the audio side, I'll explain it. I want you to keep 3. The game is called Keep 3. All right. I got 15 shows up on the screen. You get to keep 3. You're punting the other 12. Let me run them off, because most people are listening, not watching here. Boy Meets World, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Family Matters, Full House, Home Improvement, Saved by the Bell, Martin, Growing Pains, The Wonder Years, Seinfeld, Beverly Hills 90210, Married with Children, Friends, Cheers, and Roseanne. So you get to keep 3. There's 15 up here. You got to get rid of the rest. What are we doing here? Keep 3.
Can we keep 3?
You gotta keep 3. Only 3.
I thought this was easy at first blush, but it is there's 2 shows that are going to really pain me for cutting them.
Okay.
For me, the top 3 are very easy.
The top 3?
The top 3
are easy. You only get to keep 3.
Correct. Right. That's what I mean. Like, it's easy. Oh. But like, if you're talking about, like, because I think the top 3 separate themselves well, but like that 4 and 5, you also don't want to get rid of. But like, them's the breaks. Like, you gotta say goodbye.
All right, who we keeping?
So we're keeping the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Okay.
That's an all-time show.
Sure.
That is a great, perfect sitcom. We're keeping Seinfeld again. Perfect show.
Those perfect first show. 2 are easy, I think. It's the 3rd one where I struggle. You can only keep one more. Yeah.
The 3rd one's Cheers. Again, it's a perfect show. And it's a show where, like Seinfeld, some of the humor has kind of aged out, or, in Cheers' case, there's probably a few episodes you can't air today.
Definitely not.
Subject matter and how things were worded at the time.
But there's some sexual harassment lawsuits in today's world watching Cheers.
100%. Yes.
Or living it, I should say. If you're living out Cheers.
And some of the way some of the things were handled, like, less than good compared to how it should be handled today. But
of course,
but those 3 shows are all timers for me.
All right, give me 1 or 2 tough cuts though. What's a 1 or 2 tough cut?
My 2 toughest cut, and like both you and I are profound Friends haters, so I'm not saying Friends, even though Friends would probably be the one where everybody's like, you got to keep Friends. I'm not keeping. No, I'm never keeping.
Agreed. Peace out. I like Matt very much respect, but I ain't picking Friends either. That's an easy one.
The other 2 for me are Roseanne, because I will go to bat for that show. Not the version of Roseanne that came back.
We're talking about the TV show.
I'm talking
the
about
original, the OG.
The original version is a brilliant show.
I agree.
And Married with Children, honestly. Raunchy. It was raunchy. It pushed every limit back in the day. And it was like that, and The Simpsons were like Fox's like 2 big home run hitters for sitcoms. And Married with Children, I mean, like very borderline in how it handled a lot of things, but it was, looking at it now, it was very kind of ahead of what it was at the time. Because at the time it was like, what is this show? Kids can't watch this.
Yeah.
You watch some of those episodes now and you're like, oh man, this was really well done. It was really smart. Ed O'Neill was so damn good. So was Katie Seagal. Holy smoke, she was great. That's a great show. That is a legit great show. And so is Martin. Martin, oh man, like I watched Martin constantly. Could I remember
show, underrated?
100%. Could I remember episodes by like, by memory? Absolutely not. But like that was a show that was real damn good. And Martin Lawrence, I mean, this is pre Martin Lawrence going kind of off the deep end, was hilarious. Like that show is incredibly funny. And Tisha Campbell was awesome. She was so good at putting Martin in his place every episode, just being like, get out of here, you loser. Like, just great. That was such a damn good show. Everything else, like, there's bits that I liked. I think I was maybe just out of the realm of Boy Meets World, like maybe by a year. If I was a year younger, that show was probably like right in my pantheon of like great Friday, the Friday shows. Family Matters lost so much steam late. Like that show was on forever. And like the last like 5 years of it are just like, get off my TV, please. Saved by the Bell, never liked. Full House, fine. Like it was really good. Like whatever.
It was corny. I like corny now as I'm older. But at the time, I was like, this is corny. It's not in a good way.
And like I watched it like constantly. That TGIF lineup, man. Like I watch that shit all the time.
Yeah.
Home Improvement, whatever. Wonder Years, it's really good. But
that's mine, man. That's my tough cut. Wonder Years to me would be my. I agree. Your three are my three too, by the way, and in that order too. I would Fresh Prince.
Okay, see, I was not saying them in order. I was just like, those are my three. Like I wasn't ranking.
Well, Fresh Prince and Seinfeld were easy for me, and it came down to Cheers, which I ultimately would have taken as well. But the Wonder Years was my toughest cut. Home Improvement, by the way, it's right up there with Friends. Is one of the most overrated shows.
Yeah,
I thought that show sucked. I was never a big Tim Allen guy. I never really thought it was that funny. I was kind of into 90210. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. Back in the day, I was a little bit into that. Not enough to be one of my top three, though.
See, it's kind of funny that show's in that mix with like all of these, because that was like a drama. Everything else of this is like kind of Wonder Years was a drama too, I guess.
Yeah.
Everything else was kind of sitcom comedy.
Yeah.
Anyway. And Saved by the Bell was like what, a Saturday afternoon show?
Saturday morning, dude. That shit was on at like 9:30 in the morning on Saturdays. I kind of like. I didn't watch it at the time, but kind of liked it when I got older. I ain't gonna lie.
That was prime Pee Wee's Playhouse time for me. That was my Saturday morning. To give you an idea of like the kind of humor I have, Pee Wee's Playhouse was it for me, dude. Like that was must watch TV for me every Saturday before going and doing any like basketball or bowling or baseball, whatever it was, whatever I was doing on Saturdays as a kid. It was Pee Wee's Playhouse was first up.
All right, that's going to do it for the show. Make sure you follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Yerdon. Subscribe to Noted Hockey, www.notedhockey.com. See, I got rid of the Substack part. I know that's not in it. I don't know. Getting better at that. Of course, make sure you check out Maintenance Day Podcast. In fact, the newest episode is actually out now with Joe and Lance Lazowski from the Buffalo News. Dude, the day off for the Sabres, so I got to steal you, man. I always appreciate you having on, buddy. I always like having you on, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. And it's always a treat to be on, man, every time. So it's always good to catch up.